Today was a big day in the NFL because we found out that we are getting a lot of running backs who are going to be available this offseason to sign via free agency.
Yeah, Breece Hall.
Breece Hall. Frostberg, don't lie to America. You can't do that, man.
You know what,
I
though?
didn't lie.
You're lying. You can't do that.
Can you believe this, though? Early 2024 fantasy football draft rankings, top 5.
He's a top 5, yeah. I saw that. I'm like, yeah, what a curse.
I don't know that he was top 5. We did
for a Jet in 30 years.
Dude, you're not lying, man. Seriously, that's got to be the first top 5. I'm serious. I don't know, because when Keyshawn played, I don't know that PPR was as big enough back then. So I think he might be the first top 5 Jet ever. Because by the fantasy football hit it big in the early 90s, and the Jets were absolutely terrible.
Mike's been playing since the 80s.
So,
no, that's right. I've been around a minute.
Curtis Martin maybe was a top 5 pick. Maybe.
Yeah, he probably would have been one of the, because back when running backs were still king.
Yeah, when they were,
as we're about to talk about now.
Right,
but yeah, we did our 5-round mock draft for the season finale of the I Want Your Flex podcast. Shameless plug wherever you get your audio. But Breece Hall came up very early, and I couldn't take him. I had the moral conflict of taking a Jet.
You couldn't take him in a bleeping mock draft?
No.
You're not playing this
psychologically, it was I had a block. I couldn't do it.
It's a freaking mock draft.
I still couldn't do it.
What do you mean you couldn't do it? You're not playing this out.
Jets, and in my head.
You're not playing this out. It was
pounding a headache. I wanted to find a hammer
here's
and
the thing.
smash my head.
I do understand that a little bit, because I remember when we were at NFL Network, and we had to do mock drafts all the time.
Yeah.
And it was like, I'm taking it. I'm like, you're not playing it out. You're not. Just take whoever
you're not
you're
building
take.
a roster.
Yeah,
just take the next
whoever you're going to take. What is wrong with you? We're drafting in March. Just pick somebody. It's okay. Oh no. Because everybody was always so nervous when people would say to them on social media, "Why are you taking this?"
No,
guy?
I like the hate.
Oh my God, people are insane. But there are a lot of running backs out there because, as Adam Schefter first reported earlier today, Josh Jacobs, Saquon Barkley, Tony Pollard, all are expected to become free agents. None of them will get the franchise tag. So this means Jacobs, Barkley, and Pollard will join Derrick Henry, who is also going to be in free agency, Austin Ekeler, who the Chargers will let explore free agency. They're ready to say goodbye to Austin Ekeler last year, so they're not going to sign him again.
He wants to come back at $4 million or whatever.
Sure.
They'll be happy to have him.
Also, DeAndre Swift, A.J. Dillon, Devin Singletary, who had a big second half of the year for the Texans, Zach Moss, J.K. Dobbins, who's be good for a game and a half, Gus Edwards, Ezekiel Elliott, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. There's a lot of running backs out there, man. You're talking about probably 10 starting running backs. 10 of these players will change teams and will become starters, or at least co-number one someplace else.
Yeah, we just look at the position as a whole. How many teams have gone to a 2 or 3 running back situation? More teams getting their wide receivers involved, right? You're seeing more of those offensive formations of the quick handoff as guys are in motion and everything else. That you've kind of looked at the running back position. You're not going to pay him $12 million a year. Like Christian McCaffrey's the unicorn in all this. And people kept trying to get up to his dollar amount. And you look at it last year, all the guys that held out, the only guy that ended up looking really good was Chris Jones. Guess what? He's not a running back. Okay? So, and Josh Jacobs, Jason Lockenfora, who joined us last hour, Washington Post, longtime NFL insider, friend of the show. Jacobs was the guy he held up, and I would do the same, right? Less tread on the tires. A guy who performed in a subpar offense, let's call it what it is. Former rushing leader last year, even with everything kind of spiraling and the quarterback position being an issue, still put up pretty good numbers while giving way to Zamir White, right? Because they started going to the 2-man.
Yeah.
So that saved him, actually, as you hit the open market here, and maybe makes him that much more a desired kind of asset for you. But certainly when we look at where the dollars are, if you want to tag a guy, what are we talking? $12, $13 million? You're not paying a guy.
You're not even getting that. No. Guys,
but I mean, that would be the tag.
They'll get $8 million.
So, yeah.
That's why because look, the guy I want, wait till I tell you the guy I want. But in reality, yes, Barkley and Jacobs will do the best. They'll get $8 million a year, 2 or 3 years until they hit 30. We talked to Jason Lockenfora. He says, look, in the grand scheme of things, Jacobs is the youngest out of the group. He'll get a pretty good deal. And Barkley, there's that mythicness of, Barkley, man, if he's that guy, but he'll get he'll get a good base.
Like he might be a guy that could make a ton of money in incentives. I could see a team structuring a deal that way to where he really does, if he performs, breaks the bank.
No, so those two guys, they'll get the biggest deal. Pollard is going to be seen as a one-year wonder, and is he someone that can carry? He will definitely draw interest, but this is going to be, hey, maybe $5 million a year for you for a year or two, because no one's going to break the bank for a big long-term deal. You're looking at 3 years at the most, and probably 2 years for most of these guys. This is just the running back position. But the guy I want out of all of them, I'm going to stun you with the guy I want, because I just said his name. Because he's not going to cost as much, and you'll get him for a good 3 years. And every time he's gotten an opportunity in the last couple of years, he's been great.
Zach Wilson?
The guy I want. It's funny you say that because it's not Zach Wilson, but it's Zach Moss. Okay? When Jonathan Taylor Thomas got hurt at the end of last year, he came in the final 4 weeks of the season, led the league in rushing. Okay? He missed the first 4 games this year. Zach Moss was leading the NFL in rushing when Jonathan Taylor came back, right? Zach Moss, it took him a little bit of time. It took Zach Moss a little bit of time to get going. You thought he was going to be a star with the Bills, but it took him just a little bit to get going. But every time he has gotten a chance in the last couple of years, he has been really good. Now, maybe this is part of, and maybe the Colts offensive line is, because if Jonathan Taylor gets hurt and his backup comes into the league's league in rushing, maybe it's the offensive line. But still, every time he's been called upon and you give him the ball a ton, he's had games with 25 carries, 28 carries. He's had big games. He's not going to cost a lot of money. And could I get him as a nice guy for the next 3 years? Because he's a nice guy, he'll say hi to you. As a nice fit that could be a 1, but also a 1A for the next 3 years for $15 million total? Hey, you want $15 million guaranteed next 3 years? You got it. That's the guy I would go get, because I'm not going to go sign someone to be a bell cow running back, because it's not going to happen. The team that signs Saquon Barkley is going to have somebody else there. The team that signs Josh Jacobs is going to have somebody else there. So if I'm paying 8 to 10, if I've got to guarantee $20-25 million for 3, why don't I go for a guy that's younger than all of them that I know can produce and is only going to cost me $5 million a year? So if I can have my choice of any of those guys for what I want to do for my team, I'll go with Zach Moss.
I'll go with another ex-Bill, and I'll go with Singletary, given what he was able to do this year.
Damian Pierce was bad, and that's a big thing. It's different running styles, but Pierce was given a chance to be the starter there every season, and every game was 12 carries, 24 yards. Right?
Now, to be fair, that offensive line
and was
early,
good.
Yeah, and that's the curiosity, right? Early on in the year, that offensive line, you had a number of players that were on IR, etc. C.J. Stroud performed brilliantly, quite obviously, but Singletary, once he got a chance, it was the guy that we saw flashes of in Buffalo, but it finally came to fruition. So I wouldn't be surprised if they brought him back in some capacity, on maybe a 2-year deal or again, get to some of the incentive laden kind of thing. But those are the two guys I think that stand out. Your pick of Moss, I think, is the one that is really curious, because he's going to cost a lot less name recognition, certainly from the football crowd, right? Scouts and whatever certainly know what he's capable of. And if you wrote him in the fantasy world, then yes, you're excitable about him. Otherwise, he's a guy that goes into that next tier pretty easily. It's like, oh yeah, remember he was supposed to be the guy there, and you probably missed the extra stops in between. But he's a guy that I think fits, right? If the Chargers go and make a swing and decide not to go full in on Barkley, because you don't need name, right? That's the thing. We always used to be like, all right, you can get production and the name, and it's like buying, a crossbody bag that's got, I don't know, for lack of a better argument, a Harry Potter tag on it. You're going to pay $40 more to have that Harry Potter tag as you would if it was just a nice plain blue crossbody bag. You don't need to do that for Saquon Barkley.
No.
Go get Zach Moss.
But look, and the whole thing is that between the two of them, they'll go after Jacobs first. Like I don't think, because running backs are going to want to see who sets the market, right? So I will tell you that when it comes down to it, Jacobs will be the most desirable guy because of his age. So they're going to wait, see what he gets, And that's when you're going to start seeing, okay, well, if Jacobs is worth, say, $8 million a year for 2 years, well, then everything comes in under that. Yeah. Saquon Barkley is maybe $7 million for 2 years. Whatever. So that's how it's going to go.
Let me ask the obvious question. How many of them are represented by Scott Boras that they can totally screw and slow down the market?
Boy, he would really screw the NFL. If he was an NFL agent, keeping his guys out until September 1st.
Hey. Our first game isn't until after Labor Day. Hang on.
Hey, I'm meeting with Jerry Jones because I'm going to tell him how much money Tony Pollard has made the Cowboys.
That's right.
In the last year.